Okay, good afternoon. My name is Keith Sequeira. I'm the head of unit for the European Innovation Council in DG Research of the Commission. So thanks for joining us at the end of a very long day to the panel on unleashing the power of innovation. So what we're going to be talking about is how we can get a better match between all of the solutions. Is this not working? It is working. I think it's just you need to put on channel 5 for the, is everyone okay for the sound? Okay. So what we're going to be talking about is how we can match between the kind of innovative solutions that we're supporting through the European Innovation Council, and we have one of our companies represented here, and the kind of demand side from buyers, from procurers, and in particularly the role of competence centres as the kind of way of, as I put it, overcoming the information asymmetry between what are the solutions on the market and what are the actual needs for using these solutions. So we're going to start with a round of questions, and I'll ask all of the panelists to introduce themselves during this round. We'll have some general discussion, but I'd like to leave some time at the end for all of the questions from the audience here, so please take notes and we'll leave times. I need to particularly thank Marlene, who is not Silke. Unfortunately Silke was not well, so thanks a lot Marlene for stepping in. I know you come from the German Competence Centre. You've been, so just for everyone to know, there's a slight change based on the people who were advertised on the programme. Last thing I wanted to say, just a couple of words about what we're doing in the European Innovation Council. And part of the purpose of this session is for us to understand what more we can do to support this kind of interaction. Firstly, we have a project called Spin for EIC. And that's really about providing expertise to the companies, but also to the procurers about how to get innovative procurement. And then more recently, we've launched a project called InnoBuyers. So InnoBuyers is actually about the co-creation of solutions, and we're actually funding EIC beneficiary companies to test out solutions with a public buyer. So for the companies, they actually get a reference client, they can see how this works, and for the procurer, they can see what kind of potential there might be from these solutions. And we're running it two ways. We're running it top-down, where procurers can have a common interest, and we'll try to find the companies. And we're also running it bottom-up, that companies can come with an interested buyer to support, and we will fund this directly. So this is an experiment. We're trying different things out from the EIC and across the Commission, and we're looking to see what works, what doesn't work, because this is a hugely important thing. And I think as some of our panelists, I look particularly at Malcolm, has been working on this area for a very, very long time to try and find solutions. So let's make a start with the first round of questions. And I would like to start first with Masayuki. So Masayuki is from the OECD. He's been working on reforms of public procurements. I know you've been looking at reforms in a whole number of countries, including some European countries. So Masayuki, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and my question to you is what you see emerging as the trends and best practice across countries on innovative procurement. I think it should be working.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you very much for the EIC for organizing this event and also the warm invitation. So yes, I want to start my intervention by saying that the promoting the uptake of the innovation procurement requires a series of the change management processes. Obviously, there are many enabling factors, to make it happen. And of course, it's very important to secure the clear legal and regulatory framework, and also in addition to the nice strategy. However, when we look around the practices of the OECD country as a whole on average, this is a still issue, but it's not a big issue. Yeah, because, for example, innovation procurement, yes, a little bit less behind the green public procurement, but well advanced than the socially responsible public procurement in terms of the availability of the strategy to support this kind of initiative. So what is the issue? The issue is all about the implementation. And I think there are two enabling factors that we consider relevant. First one is paradigm shift, to bring the paradigm shift, to obtain the buy-in from the whole stakeholder or the innovation procurement. And second one is to increase their capability to carry out the innovation procurement. For the first point, when we talk about the stakeholder of the innovation procurement, yes, there are many stakeholders in the public sector and the private sector. But for example, there are, in the public sector, there are contracting authority who carry out the procurement, innovation procurement. And there are oversight bodies who verify and control the innovation procurement procedure. And when you look at the private sector, obviously we have the economic operator who are actually procuring the innovative solution and the services. So, but when we talk about the innovation procurement, some of the stakeholders might think that no, we don't want to do it because this is a new thing. This is too risky. This is the first impression that we might have, maybe at least some of us, But we definitely need to change this behavior through the paradigm shift by getting the buy-in from the whole stakeholder. And if we, assume that we manage to do that, change the perspective, then, they think that, yes, they want to do it. They want to do the innovation procurement. But then soon they will start to ask another question. That is, yes, we want to do it. But wait, how can we do that? I don't know how to do that. That's how we don't want to do it. Again, they go back to the 0 point. So here is a point where the second enabling factor, that is capability building, really matters. We need to provide the whole stakeholder of the innovation procurement with the opportunity to improve their skills to carry out the innovation procurement. And with this, kind of the two enabling factor, finally, all the stakeholders think that, yes, we can do it. And which will lead to this kind of uptake of the strategic procurement. So I want to just say that anyway, that there are two important factors on the implementation. One is the paradigm shift of the stakeholder, and second one is improving the capability building, and that's how we are working as an OECD country. And lastly, I want to just conclude my first intervention by saying that Competence Center of Innovation Procurement is a nice, the good institutional model to be in charge of assuming these kind of the very important missions. So I think I want to conclude here on my first impression. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Masayuki. Yeah. So first is getting procurers to want to do it, and second, how do they do it? And you mentioned already the role of competence centres. So I'd like to turn to Marlene next. So you're working in a competence centre, I think, in Germany. And I think also you're part of this network of competence centres across Europe. So I wanted to ask you, what do competence centres do? If you can give some examples, some flavour of how this is addressing the kind of problems that Masayuki mentioned, please, Marlene.
Thank you for the invite, and I was glad to see that not everyone left when they saw, oh, Silke isn't here, because obviously the Austrian Competence Center is one of the longest running and most successful of the competence centers, but nevertheless, as a senior project manager at the Competence Center Co-Inno in Germany, we have, not recently, but we have been running since 2012. But our first mission was, for the, let's say, first 6 to 8 years, was to build capacity with the public buyers. And then in a second step now, for the last couple of years, we've been actually focusing on enterprises and companies as a target group. And I think this is something that I can see. I'm also the secretariat of the network Procure to Innovate, which connects all existing competence centers in Europe. What I can see with all of these competence centers is that we are now able to move forward to actually include companies as target audiences, because we have reached a certain ability within the public procurement side, and that wasn't possible beforehand. And now we are able to offer for suppliers a training course that they can go through. We actually offer certification. That is our most recent service we have. So this started just this month. A company can be certified as innovative, and that will make it easier and give clarity and trust for a public buyer that they can work with this company and have a decreased risk while doing innovation procurement. So those are the steps that we are taking. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I don't know, Marlene, if you can comment on the first point from Masayuki, which is about the mindset shift. I mean, do you see a willingness of procurers to actually do this? And then you can move to the capacity building.
Definitely. I mean, I can speak from two perspectives here. I can speak from the German perspective, where we are a large country. We have many public procurers that are absolutely willing to step out and be cutting edge. But we are now, as we've been running for this long, in the process of actually mainstreaming this towards the rural, smaller public authorities, which is much more difficult. It's like our second or third phase here. And then from a European perspective, looking at the network that we have, I can definitely see that there is more adventurous countries like the Netherlands or Sweden that are really cutting edge. And there's other countries where this is a more slow process, but nevertheless, there's always, I think we need to give credit to public procurers to what they are doing and what they are achieving.
Many thanks. Let me switch now to the perspective of a company. So Juris, if I can turn to you next. I think you've been a quantum researcher and now you have a startup company, AQT, that we are funding through the European Innovation Council. I know there's a whole number of different competing technologies on quantum, and you're looking at the trapped ion quantum. So I don't know what your experience of trying to sell quantum to public authorities or how you see this, but tell us what you think the challenges are for a kind of deep tech company such as your company in approaching public procurement.
Right. Yes, as you already mentioned, so we are a deep tech quantum company, and so we are building quantum computing, building really hardware in a really innovative field. And so so the company started as when friends and then colleagues came to the university and said, okay, can I actually get some of the technology you are using there? And so at that point we thought, okay, there might be interest also beyond. And so that's when the company was founded. And so also that type of customer base so has been accompanying us for quite some time already now. But of course now, so we are pushing with these innovative capabilities for quantum computing to enhance the computing, the supercomputing capabilities in Europe as well. And so some of the early adapters of our technology are the supercomputing centers. And so one of the projects which we are realizing now in Munich with one of our devices. And so from company perspective, so once one has the technology, once one creates these innovations and through the innovation pipeline where we try to become and stay competitive, so one of the first things we always think about there is so for company strategy and IP. So how can we ensure that there is a long-term sustainable future for the company? And so for startups, IP management is one of very important topics. The first question any VC would ask if you would want to scale up the company is, do you own the IP? And that's also one of the areas where we see, and I think not only us but also some other companies in the area where we are working in, that there are always not easy negotiations with public entities. Once you talk about innovation, once you talk about the results, so of course there are good reasons for that. Governments might want to have long-term strategic interest in that IP, but at the same time, the question if then that IP is taken away from a startup, whether that might not be the right incentive and take away the raison d'être for the startup to be as an economic actor. So that's, for example, one of the challenges that we have seen.
No, thank you very much. I know IP has been one of these issues. I think we've given advice that procurers should be very careful about what kind of IP they claim, and they should really limit it to the necessary, because otherwise you block the company from addressing other markets. But you see this as still something that has not sort of filtered through in terms of your experience of approaching public authorities.
So I think public authorities on the European level are really good with that. So for example, the programs from EIC are fantastic in this regard, and also from European Commission. But so it's it's not always the case on different levels.
Thanks very much, Juris. Let me bring in then Rosario. So Rosanna. So Rosanna, you're Procurement Director in the Catalonian Department of Health. So, I mean, you're on the sort of forefront of actually implementing the procurements. So, I mean, what's your experience, and what are the benefits for you as a procurer on innovative procurement?
Yes. Well, for us, it's a very long journey. First of all, thank you for inviting me to represent exactly AQUAS, that is the agency, the Catalonian Agency of Health Quality and Assessment of the Department of Health of Catalonia. And for us, this is really is a key factor to adopt this innovation procurement. We started a long time ago already. We started in 2012 with the CIPHER. That was the very first pre-commercial procurement, cross-border pre-commercial procurement in mobile health, co-funded by the European Commission, by Framework Program 7, so a long time ago. And since then, we really engaged in several innovation procurement activities in different fields, always clearly in healthcare, but this can be applied, I don't know, like to improve the patient journey with pacemaker, with defibrillators, to improve the patient journey of patients that needs personalized 3D prostheses, to improve the detection of and the management of multi-resistant drug organisms. And this, in fact, it was a first pre-commercial procurement anti-superbug, is now is a PPI that is called Radar. So it's we are really spanning in different areas. And we are doing it together, and this is very important. We are doing it together with processes to continuously improve, apply improvement, so review what we are doing and improve for the next time, like iteration. And also always with knowledge sharing. The lemma of this session is cooperation. Without cooperation, we are saying a lot of things, but the very first word is cooperation. Alone, you don't do nothing, really. You cannot move forward. And what is the engine of all of this? At the end of the day, the engine is to improve the service we deliver to our patients, to our citizens. So it's not. Always we start defining the unmet needs, taking consideration what will be the results, the outcomes that we are going to achieve with this introduction of this innovation, with the implementation of this innovation. This is the key factor. And when we are talking about increasing competence, increasing also not to alleviate, also empower the SME, empower the startups. We always need to take into account that they need to understand what are the results we want to achieve. If they don't understand it, then there is always a gap. And this is important. So I think the public authority really can mitigate the risk aversion, the change aversion, if they see, then this is really what is happening now with our healthcare providers, no? If they understand that if they do this change and they need this information to do this transformation, then they can improve A, B, and C. And so also the implementation and the adoption of this innovation needs to take this into account. This is the strength and the engine to make this happen. And well, we are really enthusiastic, by the way, by these instruments, because we are
yeah, no, that's great.
really. We have now, for instance, in Catalonia, we have a transformation innovation program led by the Department of Health, and we have identified more than 18 transformation projects co-funded by the Next Generation Funds, and all of them went through an education program called IRAs that we are leading, and because they will do with implementing innovation procurement projects, and so they need to start from how to define the unmet needs.
Okay, we're going to come back to some of this, but let me turn to Malcolm. So Malcolm, you've been a MEP for many years here in Brussels, very much at the centre of European policy making, I know on procurement as well. And now you're in the UK in one of the catapults, which is a kind of public-private partnership, a kind of an accelerator. And I've seen you're involved in the Innovative Procurement Empowerment Centre. So that's maybe, I don't know if that's a step further than a competence centre, an empowerment centre. And I know you're working a lot with cities and regions. So, I mean, your view on this and the importance of, you know, what are you doing in the centre and what's going on in the cities and regions?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. And I mean, as far as I know, this is the first time I can recall that we've had a presidency conference around innovation procurement. So this is a genuinely historic occasion, and one which I having championed on innovation public procurement for many, many years, and indeed my early collaborators in the Commission from 2006 here today, you can see that I've been consistent in arguing for it. Now, so I retired from the European Parliament 10 years ago. The one project that I've carried with me has been essentially unfinished business around encouraging the deployment of innovation procurement. And I think what's interesting is that many of the things that Masiaki and the others have been talking about, you know, were there when I left. And the question about risk aversion, you know, was really there. And it was partly because when I left, I chaired all the negotiations for the 2014 directive. And parliamentary pressure introduced a lot of new innovation into that, particularly the innovation partnership. And people were uncertain about it. And there's been a consistent challenge since then, both in the UK and here, to get people to use the potential that the legislation offers. You know, I would have really got rich if people had given me €1 every time they said, oh, well, it's because of the legislation we can't innovate. It's simply not true. And I've just published a report with the Connected Places Catapult and with 2 lawyers, which is called The Art of the Possible in Public Procurement. Because that's what we really need to think about. We need, as Masiaki says, to change the paradigm, to get rid of risk aversion and get people to understand that we need a legal framework for public procurement, but it's not one that's designed to inhibit innovation. You know, and if we allow people to be deterred from that, we're not going to achieve the real benefits from it. So I'm very pleased to say that the UK government has accepted the arguments of myself and my colleagues in the Connected Places Catapult, and have given us some funding to launch an Innovation Procurement Empowerment Centre. And I think we're the only people to use the word empowerment, but I think that's actually accurate, because we want to empower more people in public authorities to really exercise and use these tools. And our remit is very much directed at local authorities with cities and regional authorities, because despite the fact that governments are very interested in big ticket procurement issues, and we've had a very interesting session about low carbon and hydrogen and so on just now, actually the real empowerment can come in local communities. A local government could do smaller projects, closer to citizens, move more quickly, and be genuinely more innovative. And the more we can share that experience, the more we can get that to percolate up. You know, procurement and innovation procurement should be an upward movement. So it's a real pleasure to come here, and I hope that with the European Innovation Council, and now that the United Kingdom has rejoined Horizon Europe, that we can start collaborating much more together with our colleagues And if we can be associated with the European Empowerment Centre as well, and to share ideas, that's really going to move things forward. So I'll be coming to see you to talk about that shortly.
No, many thanks, Malcolm, and very interesting to hear. I wanted to kind of open up the discussion now. I thought there'd be two themes that would be interesting for us to exchange, and then I'll open to the questions. Marlene, I know you need to leave a bit early, so if you've got questions for Marlene, we'll take those questions first. But the two topics I wanted to dig into a bit more is this role of competence centres. I mean, how effective is it at providing the toolkit, the kind of capabilities? Do we need more collaboration across Europe? And then the second one I'd like to go into a bit is more from the company perspective. I mean, how do we get this match with all of these fantastic companies we're supporting through the EIC? So let's dig in a bit on the competence centres first. Maybe, Rosanne, I can turn to you first. I mean, you're a procurer, so I don't see. I mean, what has been your experience, and what do you think you need as a procurer to get from these kind of competence centres?
Yes, I think that one thing that we sometimes we forget. Well, I don't think we forget because we don't forget it, but does not appear sometimes in these documents in the literature that we read, in the innovation procurement, is that it's not just we are not just adopting innovation. We are making investment. The public body is making investment and needs to make sure that still we are then delivering the best service we can to our citizens. We are efficient, and so we need to make sure that all the way that we deliver this innovation really create a positive impact. Why I'm putting this emphasis? Because I think that the competence center also should support the public bodies, and this is what I see when we make this procurement in consortium, in how to create the evidence, to generate the evidence that this is creating an impact. Because if we miss this factor, then it looks like that we are just procuring innovation for nothing, for procuring information. And the idea is not that we want to make a benefit, not to the society, to our healthcare provider, to our, in my case, because I'm talking about healthcare, but to the public body in general, to deliver a good service to our citizens, because we are spending public money. And this is, I think, is a factor that we should emphasize. And so when I expect that the competence center and also the EIC companies beneficiaries look at our unmet needs, they look at also how we can generate together with the public body this evidence. And also the public body sometimes doesn't know how to do it. It's something also difficult. And clearly in healthcare we have health technology assessment, early dialogue, we have methodologies. But this should be done more widely. It's not just, as we would say, in healthcare issues. Well, it was just a proposal, and I would like to add something that is very important, that I would say that also EIC competence center could support, is exactly this IP issue, because it's true that we usually always leave the IPs to the contractors, but it's true also that the public bodies wants to the knowledge is recognized. So I don't think that the solution is at the end of the day that we retain the IP. It's not the solution, but somehow the recognition of the knowledge we bring needs to be somehow also addressed. And this is also something still a work in progress sometime. Not in all of the public procurement I see, innovation procurement I see, that is clearly defined how to recognize this background.
No, many thanks. So I take from that there's one thing about what is the evidence base that you can actually use with the doubters to kind of prove that this works?
Well, we need to generate it, clearly. It's innovation. So we really, that's important key. If in the HTA field, in our health department, they tell me, what is the evidence? Well, still we need to create the literature. But we need to know how to do it.
Please, Malcolm, if you... I'm going to hold on to this one, otherwise I'll lose control of the discussion.
Well, one thing we did with our empowerment centre is we've included a research element in that. So we have set up IPEC research to pick up Rosanna's point. I mean, the real issue with innovation procurement is that we don't collect enough data to understand how it works. And I think that's true of everybody. I mean, even the OECD doesn't have that level of comprehensive data. And we need to design that. And we can share it with each other. I mean, in my view, it's a project that the EIC should be supporting, if I put my pitch in for that. So I have 2 universities working on it, and maybe more. But we need actually to collect a source of data. It's simply not good enough, as somebody is doing, to just analyze the text of contracts to show where the innovative contracts are. What we want to know is which contracts are working and how long they're working for, and the great companies that we've supported and the ones that have been successful through partnership, through an innovative procurement. You know, we need to identify those, and we need to show that to decision makers.
Right, I'm going to pass to Masayuki first, and then, I mean, this whole idea, because I think it's both the evidence to make the case, but all the evidence also about what works. So it moves into the kind of toolkit and how you use it. So I don't know if you would like to comment on this from the OECD side.
Yes, first thing I should say to all of you that initially we have the public procurement recommendation of the OECD, which was adopted by the OECD member states in the 2015, and we need to follow up regularly every 3 years. And this year is exactly the year where we have to follow up on how the country advanced in the public procurement reforms. And one of the topics is definitely the strategic procurement, including the innovation procurement. And now we are exactly preparing some questions on the innovation procurement, including innovation procurement, something like, what kind of incentive mechanism they are putting, to promote uptake to innovation procurement. So we might have this data and answer ready for this fall. So hopefully we can provide some kind of although a little bit high level still, but we can hope that we can provide some kind of data on the, current situation of the OECD's country. Yeah, and if I can comment something on on how we can go further on the, capability building and also awareness raising that I mentioned. I talked from the high level point from the first round, so I just want to talk from our actual OECD project with some member states country, like EU member states like Croatia. And we are now working with Croatia to support the uptake of the innovation procurement in Croatia. And for this, we are trying to test what I've already mentioned, the 2 things, awareness raising and the capability. And what we learned is that the communication and also the involving the whole stakeholder is very important. For example, in the capability building, we have some kind of the activity. We analyze the current capability level of the procurement officials in Croatia. And based upon this, we developed the training program and also the manual on how to do the innovation procurement. And in February, initially, in Zagreb, we organized a 4-day training program on the innovation procurement. And in this workshop, what was interesting is that we invited the many stakeholders of the public sector in Croatia, policymaker, contracting authority, but we also invited the audit peoples to raise their awareness on the innovation procurement and also increase their capability. And the interesting thing is that that's not the end of this program. Later this June, we might be organizing another training program for other procurement officers at the contracting authority. And there, this time, the trainer, I mean the policymaker, audit people, and also the contracting authority will be the trainer to provide the training on the innovation procurement. And these kind of things will kind of send some kind of a strong message to the procurement official that holds the public sector, including the audit and the policymaker, are really willing to promote the innovation procurement. So I think this is a very important thing. And for the economic operator, we also estimate to have the awareness raising workshop, again with the presence of the policymaker and audit, again to send a message to economic operator that they are really willing to collaborate with the private sector on the innovation procurement. So I think this kind of activity to include the whole thing, stakeholder might be something we can maybe stress further in the future. Sorry, I should stop here.
Yeah, no,
thank you very
thanks so much, Masayuki. I like the point about bringing in the auditors, because we always forget about the auditors. But you know, we want a situation where the auditors are asking, why didn't you do innovative procurement? Because actually you would have got more value for money. I'd like to sort of move on a little bit to perspective, the sort of second point about how do we make this easier for kind of small companies, deep tech startups, to actually access procurement. I don't know, Iris, if you've got some comments on this, or if you want to react to some of the other comments that have been made.
There was one thing that actually resonated with me, and I think would resonate with a lot of ESG beneficiaries from what Rosanna said, and it's about understanding what's required and actually working together with the competence centers, with government agencies, with different stakeholders, already very early on in the process, right? Because once the contract is written, so that's already too late essentially, because I mean, if one's buying a new car, right? So you just look around what's there and what are your needs, what is on the market, and so also I think there should be. Yeah, so that should happen more, and so we have also the processes and tools in place to enable that, and so to really then engage with the public authorities, with the procurers, with other governmental bodies, actually to develop those competences and actually ensure that there is essentially match between requirements from one side and capabilities of the innovation from the other side, because of course it's also very nice to have big visions, and so that's one of the driving forces behind startups as well. To I'm going to go out, change the world. But in the same time, it's important to remain pragmatic and look on the time scales where on what time scales what can be implemented, and so that I think there we agree a lot that I mean might be stereotypical, but communication is key.
No, let's, Marlene, if I can ask you on this as well, because I think there's unmet needs, but presumably the unmet needs in Catalonia would be quite similar to unmet needs in other regions. And actually the secret here is whether you can send a very strong market signal that this is what is needed. And then that's an incentive for companies to invest, because then they can see the market potential. I don't know, Marlene, if this is kind of activity you think could be relevant across a network, because I mean, again, it's about the single market and using the power of the single market to send some quite clear signals to companies that help them to invest in innovation.
Yeah. I want to just get back to your point. I do agree that I think for a long time, at least from our German competence center, I don't want to speak for the other ones, we kind of underestimated how much explaining and communication is needed also towards the companies, especially towards startups. It's not because it's what we are bathed in all day. It feels relatively simple, but it isn't. And that is something that we are correcting. And then to address your question in terms of finding a match between needs and market players, I think most of our competence centers at this point have some sort of open innovation platform, matchmaking platform, innovation fund, where they are doing this very active market engagement that involves a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration, which is from what we can see, first entry point for many innovative companies to actually go into this public sector field, because it offers something very structured. You have an open innovation challenge and you can then see what is the process I'm going through. I have a partner in the competence center that's kind of holding my hand. The buyer also has someone holding their hand, and then as a wonderful trio we can go ahead into innovation. And I also, if you allow me, want to address the point of quantification of impact, because that's actually something we have an internal working group within the network where we're exactly looking at that quantification of our impact. And at least from a German perspective, we finally have the regulatory framework where we can actually collect that data, but I think that's only one thing, because we also want to find out which methodology works, not just how much innovation procurement we are doing, but what works from a competence center or support body perspective.
Okay, so we have just under 15 minutes left. So what I wanted to do now is open it up to questions in the audience. Just raise your hand. We have a microphone going around, so this is your chance. Who would like to go with the first question? Yes, please. If you want to introduce yourself when you ask your question.
Right. I'm Jorge González. I'm the director of TPOMED. We are a business association. We are part of the InnoBuyer project that it was mentioned there. And I have a question for Malcolm, if I may. So in InnoBuyer, we are trying to set up challengers, as we call them, with solvers. They do a co-creation. The money is not so big, it's 60K. And what we believe is that the final goal is not so to procure, but to adopt and deploy the innovation. Procurement is, in our opinion, just one way to incorporate and deploy the innovation. So I would like to know if, Malcolm, if you have any experiences where this innovation that has been co-created, funded, in our case through the European Commission, has been deployed in procurers, in challengers, in demanding organizations, but not through procurement, but for example, value exchange programs, by, for example, public-private partnerships, or any other way that didn't imply a direct tender from the challenger, as we call it, but that there was an agreement between the two, especially in the small contracts, under a win-win approach, so to say, but not through a direct tender. If you have found any example of this or anything.
I want to use the microphone there. So this is about, I mean, how does innovation happen in this world without the procurement mechanism being used? I mean, how do the new ideas get into the, I don't know if in the catapults you've done things on this or...
Sorry, there's a very long delay on this microphone. So it's
yeah.
Well, I mean, we're just at the early stages of this. But I mean, just coming back to the broader point, I think the tools are there for people to use in the European rules. And I think that the point that's come through very strongly, particularly from all of the panel, is how successful innovative procurement is always built on a partnership. And that partnership has to start before you award the contract. You know, there are plenty of provisions where pre-market consultation can be carried out in accordance with the basic rules of non-discrimination, fair information, you know, running a fair process that won't be open to any legal challenge. And that, I think, is the basic principle which we sometimes forget. And there are really good examples of complex contracts which are done by a really intensive relationship between the contractor and the provider. I mean, concession contracts, which we hardly ever talk about, actually, are a really good example of that sort of engagement. And we see that social services, for example, are being delivered successfully, particularly here in Belgium, by the way, with social impact bonds, by those sort of relationships. So we have to get over this idea that this is a confrontational relationship, that the legal process is there to manage fair play. You know, that is a really old-fashioned way to think about procurement. And if you look at successful private sector companies, and my background is in the car industry, in manufacturing companies, they don't work like that with procurement, so why should we?
No, I think that's right. I mean, there's a whole range of possibilities that sometimes we lack knowledge of how to implement, or we've forgotten how to implement them as well, because this is not a new area. But I would encourage all the companies, EIC beneficiaries, procurers, have a look at the InnoBuyer program. It's great that you're here as well, because that's a way that we can actually start this kind of partnership to see where things lead. So I'm looking around. Who else would have questions for our panelists? So let's start here, and then I see there's another question over there afterwards. So please go ahead if you'd like to introduce yourself again.
Good afternoon. My name is Jega Schreiber. I'm from TU Delft. We also are a beneficiary of InnoBuyer project. This is a project about the MDR regulation, and it is actually about bringing awareness to the students and researchers about the medical regulation, device regulation. And I was wondering about the type of innovations you see in the competence centers or in the OCD Like, do you think it is also often used for like social innovations or not innovations which are hardcore technology? Like, can you please comment on that type of innovations?
Right, so this is a bit of the evidence base as well about what are the innovations we're talking about. Do you see, I don't know, OECD or from Marlene, if you want to comment on this, please.
I can very quickly comment. Indeed, it is something that we see a lot in the service delivery side, and also from a perspective of inclusion of disadvantaged groups of population. This is actually where we find the most innovation, at least from a German perspective. And in fact, the last 2 years, the award winners from CoInno in Germany were both social inclusion projects. So,
No, and I think that's right, because I mean, we have a certain focus on deep tech in the EIC, and that can be important in some areas, but there's a lot of other innovations that can come through. So I think there was a question over at the back there on the right. Again, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Patrick. I'm a buyer for the Flemish PES. Hi, welcome. My question is for whomever wants to jump in. Measuring is important, of course, but if you measure, you're likely to find that, let's say, Pareto-wise, you get like 4 or 5 projects not being successful. It's my experience that most of the time it's not visible because everyone has decided it has to be successful, and so they cover up. So measuring is important, but then again, as a buyer, I learn more from those not succeeding than those being successful. So my question to you is, how do you design your government for failing forward?
No, that's a great question. I mean, how to deal with failure in the public sector is quite an issue. Who would like to comment on that, please? Just by the way, if there's any last questions, please ask them, because then I'm going to go for the final round. Please.
I would like just give 2 cents, because clearly in all the projects we are in innovation procurement activity that we did up from 2012, we had failures. And one of the things that I said is that very, very, very important is always to assess what we are doing, always to improve for next time. So always, there is no project, no procurement, innovation procurement we do that we do not make an assessment of how it went and how we can correct for the next time.
I'm not sure I can answer to your question exactly, but anyway, from the viewpoint of how to mitigate anyway this kind of the sense of the fear coming from the failure, I think I think we should recognize again that for example, innovation procurement will not always lead to the success in the short term. For example, PCP sometimes might end, just getting just a prototype, but will not go to the market. But sometimes this kind of failed product might, in the long term, will contribute to the further innovation. So we should take into account these things. And from the viewpoint of the public buyer, I have one the information from South Korea, which is not my country, just in case I'm from Japan. But anyway, South Korea, in all the country anyway, public buyer really scared of the failed innovation. In this case, failure means that the innovation procurement didn't go to the innovation. Procure the innovative solution. And in order to decrease this fear, South Korean government modified their procurement law and putting one article that the public buyer will not be blamed for even if the innovation procurement will not bring into the innovative solution, because they think that even the failed innovative solution might lead to something in the future. So that's what South Korea did, from the viewpoint of the mitigating the fears. That's what I can do, but sorry, I just stopped here.
Okay, thanks a lot. Iris, you wanted to go, and then if I don't see any other questions, we'll go to a last round, because we could spend a lot of time just on this point.
Right. So I wanted to be very quick because so there are some statistics, and I hope I remember them right. But from larger companies, about 80% of the R&D ideas never end up in products, and about 50% of patents never end up in commercial solutions. So well, that's the risk that companies are currently taking. And so if we are now talking about innovation, also moving towards closer to the public and the government sector, so well, I mean, there is this inherent risk, and so maybe, yeah, just a short comment like that.
Great. So my comment on this is that a lot of standard procurements go wrong as well. I've seen so many of straight procurements off the shelf, and they go wrong. They go over budget, they go over time, everything. Okay, so let's move to the end. I'm going to ask each of the panelists. I see Marlene has snuck away in the meantime, but I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give just 30 seconds, maybe a minute, on your kind of final takeaway message that you would like to leave us with. So let me turn to you, Malcolm, then we'll go around this way. Final kind of takeaway messages, please.
Well, what I think is really striking is how much we are in agreement and the level of issues that we wish to tackle between us. And that seems to be a brilliant opportunity for more problem sharing. You know, there's an English saying, you know, problem shared is a problem halved. I'm not sure whether that's always the case. We should certainly investigate problems as well as solutions. The issue about which procedures to use and which ones are more successful, this is where we really need to be looking at how the current legislation is working. And in the UK, we have new legislation, so we have an opportunity to look at all of that working. But the central part of that is still a so-called competitive flexible procedure. And so above all, the issue about managing a competitive procedure, a staged procedure, which I think is again part of the way that you generate innovation, is really significant, and we mustn't forget that.
Rosanna.
Well, my takeaway is that we need to start from the unmet need. So that's, since I represent a public body, that's for me is the most important thing. And the unmet need, I would say also, and this is also to reply to one of your first comments that you did earlier, an unmet need that can be defined from, can be found from more than one buyer, so that we increase the demand, we are more attractive for the market, and we decrease the risk. That's also is a very relevant takeaway to me. So an unmet need that is shared with more buyers, but yes, the market needs to understand that maybe the implementation is different because each of our country, each of the hospital, the level of the health provision is different. So it's not always the same.
Great, Masayuko.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just want to repeat that. I mean the paradigm shift among stakeholders and capability building a key to promoting the strategic procurement, and we need to also address the risk aversion issues. And maybe lastly, my key homework may be the contributing some kind of more comprehensive data of the OECD country that I can provide in the future. Thank you very much.
We'll invite you back next year for that, Masayuki. Iris, please.
Right, so very quickly from my side, so let's find ways how we can engage with each other in proper way much more and much earlier on, so that we can create a good response to the competitive challenges in this globalized world. That's my takeaway.
Great, that's a nice finishing word. So thank you, it's been a great panel. I wanted to thank Panos Sevdalis here, who's put together the panel and all the preparation, because I mean, this works when we have great discussion, and it's really nice having the procurement side. Sometimes I've been in this and it's been more just the innovation side. So I hope you found that useful. A lot of useful information for us on the EIC side. Look at some of the initiatives that we're doing, and wishing you a very nice rest of the evening. And of course, the Belgian Presidency Conference continues tomorrow, and then at the end of tomorrow we'll switch to the Research and Innovation Days as the end of this Research and Innovation Week. So many thanks. Well, there are cocktails apparently, so that's important information. Yeah.